Welcome to Tentative Title with Tim. This is a podcast about creativity, about process, about filmmaking, and about screenwriting. Welcome everybody to the show. So today's topic is about having irons in the fire. I believe it's a great thing to have many projects that you're working on because it's very easy in this business to be left without anything to do. This is a business that is about self-motivation. It's about generating things on your own time. It's about keeping things going when nobody else wants to keep things going. Like, if you're going to have a career, you're going to have to be the one who's driving it forward because it's extremely hard to keep things going and to keep momentum going and to keep interest going if you're not the one who's driving the ship. And I learned that kind of the hard way because I've been in post on my feature film, Look Into the Fire, since 2017. Now, I've heard some perspectives that, hey, you've only been in post for that long and you're almost done? Wow, that's amazing. But I was expecting to have the film done in 2018, and that didn't happen. And so, even though I was working on post on that film, I didn't want to sit around. I didn't want to have just one film that I was, I could pull out of my back pocket and say, look, I have one film that's coming out eventually. Look what I got. No, I actually used it as an opportunity that, one, I could be comfortable with the fact that I actually shot a feature film and that it was in post. And so, on the one hand, I had done something that so many other people had talked about, and I actually did. And I was like, wow, that was amazing. I can't believe I did that. And so the pressure was off in terms of having, that, milestone, off my list. But in the meantime, I didn't want to jump into another film because I wanted to give all of my attention to getting this film done. And so I used this time that I was kind of waiting around, even though I was working on post. I was working with the editor to put it together and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, this is the perfect time for me to start writing again, because I hadn't written anything. I think it was like 6 months, maybe a year, where the last time I had sat down to write anything, and I had like ideas kind of floating around, and I had, portions of scripts here and there, but I didn't have the discipline of writing at that point. Even though I had written this feature script and I'm in post on it, it's like, obviously I know how to write. I've written something, but the discipline wasn't there. And so, during that time, I discovered NaNoWriMo, and I thought, this is great. This is something that I can focus on. I can try to write a novel, and this is like something completely new. It's a challenge that I can focus on that doesn't require, it doesn't require anything except for my own commitment to showing up and doing it. And that kind of started the ball rolling with, doing NaNoWriMo every year since then. And it's been a lot of fun. It's a nice challenge that I can do, that I can expect to happen every year. And it's great. And that's kind of like one of the irons that I have in the fire. I know that I can have this happen every November, and it's great. And, I have a couple like really rough drafts of novels that I can come back to and flesh out if I need to or if I want to. I use it as a fun exercise just to kind of just as a challenge. But at some point I could go back to them and say, the idea that I had for these novels, they were actually really interesting. Let me try to flesh it out. Let me see what I can do with them. And then on the other hand, I also used it as an opportunity to, while it wasn't, November, the rest of the year, I was using it as a time to get myself disciplined in terms of writing. And so I started to break out these old ideas and scripts I had and really started to work on them. And, I was going one after another, after another, after another. And it was like, it was amazing. I was just like, wow, okay, I'm starting to build up this discipline that kind of like fulfills itself in November when I do, when I write it, a rough draft of a novel in a month, and it's a lot of fun. And then, it got me to think about like, okay, well, this is the life, with the exception of production and post-production, that I've been trying to kickstart ever since I graduated from film school. And I was like, okay, wow, yeah. So the whole idea about having irons in the fire was that as you're writing one, you're going into pre-production for another. And as you're going to pre-production for another, you're going into production for another one. And then, so on and so forth. And you kind of like are rotating through the different stages on various projects. And I thought, yeah, that's exactly the kind of the kind of process that I'm trying to create for myself. And I kind of got sidetracked because of the fact that like I was still in post on this feature film, and I felt guilty about trying to get another project started without having put out this initial one. So like I just kind of stopped and I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to be writing, this entire time. But once we're able to kind of get back into having regular productions, it's a good idea to get that process going. And, like I said before, it's so hard just to get it going. But once you get one out there and, you're developing stuff as things are being released, that is kind of like the whole process that can give you longevity in the long run. Now, I know that a lot of like showrunners, this is their process. This is how they get through a season of television, is by doing this exact same thing. Like they're looking at edits on shows while they're breaking a story for for another episode that's happening, while they're rewriting scripts on another episode, and just like that process is constantly going, but it's truncated because they have a certain amount of time to have all these episodes done, and so it's like a lot of pressure. But if you take that same concept and you bridge it out of the lifespan of your entire creative life, it's actually a really good idea, and it's something that I wish I had implemented earlier on, and wasn't feeling so guilty about not having something finished before jumping into something else. Although I do understand that like you want to put as much energy into the thing that you're working on before you jump on to something else, because especially as a director, that's kind of like where your focus is. But there are a lot of directors who, as they're in post on one film, they're already in pre-production on another film, and they're able to kind of jump from one thing to another and have that process going. So, also, I mean, with this pandemic, it kind of, if you were in that process, if you were in, this cycle of creating things and releasing things, and, if you had that going, the pandemic kind of shut all that down. Like I heard about shows that had to stop like in the middle of filming their last episode, or like films that, were halfway through and now they're like trying to scramble to figure out what it is they're going to do to finish their films because they're already invested, like they got to finish it. They got footage, like they're not going to shelve it. They need to finish it. And now this pandemic is just throwing a wrench into everything. I mean, to be fair, in retrospect, in the grand scheme of things, other people's health is definitely more important than a film or a TV show. I'm not trying to say that like they should put people's health at risk in order to finish something they've started. But the fact that like, when you've started into production, it's, it's a train that's leaving the station and you're just going and you want to keep going, and to have something that's out of your control stop any momentum is just, it's gotta hurt. It's gotta be so heartbreaking to just have to stop and not know when you're going to be able to come back. I totally get that. So, anyway, having irons in the fire, you can still do this. Like I'm not saying that we're not able to still have many projects going, and in fact, writers are still in a way they didn't stop. They kept creating work, because all they have to do is show up at their desk, and write the script and turn it into whoever producer or studio. Like they can still keep going, and there's probably a huge backlog of work that is just itching to get into production. But it doesn't, as writers that, we can have that process. But for production people, it's a different ballgame altogether. And there are productions that are still happening. They're mailing equipment to actors and they're doing things over Zoom and they're making it work, and that's awesome. And probably have many other productions that were about to happen before the pandemic, and are still on the slate, and they're like, we're going for it anyway. It's going to be in a different format, but we're still going to do it. And so those things are still happening, and that's great. But I'm curious to know if like anybody out there was in this like cycle of creating things and releasing things, and then all of a sudden they had to stop. How did you pivot out of this? Did you keep going? Do you still have irons in the fire, or do you find yourself having to back off and only focus on one thing at a time? Which I know for myself, I tried to continue writing, but even that kind of stopped. Like I was too concerned with what was going on in the world that trying to do anything concerning fictional characters, concerning just creative stuff, it was not at the forefront of my mind, and I just couldn't do it for a couple months. And it wasn't until just recently that I actually sat down and I wrote like a short script. Like I don't intend for this to go into production or anything. It was just like, I just want to see if I can just sit down and write something out of nothing, just out of an idea, out of an inspiration, just seeing if I could do it at all again. So anyway, that's all I got for today. Once again, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're, washing your hands like we all, should be doing. Anyway, social distance, wearing masks and all that. I hope that, you're being kind to one another and, giving love where you can, giving patience and understanding to one another. And, we will get through this. And, also, if you haven't already, I have a Twitter account for this podcast. It's at title_Tim. I also have a Facebook page for the podcast as well. Come by and say hi. Let me know you're listening. Let me know your thoughts on these episodes and what you like, and dare I say what you don't like, because I'm still learning how to do this better. And yeah, that's all I got. And till the next one, I'll talk to you then. Bye.